So Trump has created ethnic cleansing deportations against Africans, Caribbeans, Browns, people from Asia, people from the Middle East. But they've been Judge Roberts made it possible for Trump, ISIS, Homeland Security to gather up people based on the color of their skins. So the lady that got killed, that got shot, they was targeting her because you know how they break people out of their cars? They break the windows and they pull people out of the cars. Maybe she was afraid for her life. Maybe she didn't want to be adopted and sent to a black site prison in El Salvador, or Trump said, I'll send them to Iraqi prisons. I'll send them to Afghan prisons. I'll send them to Somalian prisons. Maybe she was afraid for her life and she didn't want to be abducted. And she stepped on the gas. And the officer, yeah, he almost got run over, but he shot her. Unfortunately, she died. But you know what Tulsi Noem said? That she was committing an act of terrorism. The only terrorism that's going on is when Judge Roberts approved that you can racial profile based on the color of your skins. So he violated the Bill of Rights that all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights as Supreme Court Justice. And he gave unconstitutional powers for Homeland Security and ISIS to terrorize migrants. So for Tulsi Noem to insinuate that this lady was a terrorist, to me, she doesn't look like Osama bin Laden. She doesn't look like Asa Karihiri. She looks like she's panicking for her life. Because Trump, ever since he came down those stupid escalators in 2015, has been race baiting the country with xenophobia. In order to make America white, bigger and whiter than ever before, like Charlottesville graduates with tiki torches from that great university of the Confederacy that Trump wanted to brag about ever since. And Carson Tucker talks about the Great Replacement Theory with Nazis, while Elon is throwing Nazi salutes, while they all talking about this Great Replacement with Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon. Why they say J.D. Vance, when Trump made it into his office as a second term, he sent J.D. Vance to kiss the ass of the fascist Nazi parties. Now they're rising to power. So see, this is unconstitutional. The only things and the only peoples that are being stigmatized and terrorized are colored peoples. So for Judge Roberts to violate the Bill of Rights, to not consider that all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights, for Trump to do extrajudicial kidnappings of migrants, and to insist that these migrants be massed held in concentration camps and Iraq prisons, well, Abu Ghraib, where y'all tortured innocent Iraqi citizens. Remember Abu Ghraib photographs, how they tortured when we invaded them for their oils? And when we spread the caliphate conveniently into Syria. Al-Qaeda took a while unstabilizing Assad. They did it more quicker when they did it to Gaddafi. Because the CIA and the Pentagon, they chased these terror cells conveniently into OPEC left-wing countries in order to overthrow, destabilize the cells while they're fighting against the Americans. But the CIA, along with the Pentagon, chases these terror cells in order for them to destabilize these regions. Conveniently, the Pentagon does it. And these terror cells, they're so afraid of the Pentagon that they run away And the Pentagon shepherds them, if you will. We chase them into Syria, into Libya, in order to take the oil, to prop up this global petrodollar. We almost got the Iranians starved into submission to take their oils and peg the petrodollar. But let me tell you something about America. When Trump is in New Year's Eve, for the second year in a row, New Year's Eve party with Ice Ice Baby, doom 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 doom. Why, ISIS is knocking down people's doors and rounding them up and calling them terrorists because they're on welfare. That's what Trump insinuates. So being poor peasants is their crime. He stigmatizes 25 million Latinos like they're criminals, lowlives, MS-13s, only to round them all up with ethnic cleansing because of Charlottesville's. They believe that the only way they can keep America white is by mass deportating colored peoples. Latinos, Africans, Asians, Arabs, you name it. But Roberts say, yeah, under the Bill of Rights, we can stop them based on their appearance. If they're Latinos, stop them. If they're black, stop them. And I forgot, Roberts, that this is a constitution of a union. Under the Bill of Rights, it says all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights. Now, it doesn't say all American citizens are created equal while the rest of the third world is subspecies, are varmints, are infestations, are subhumans. No, the Bill of Rights doesn't say that, Judge Roberts. It applies to all humanity from all around the planet on Earth. So, Judge Roberts, you should get impeached for being an unconstitutional Supreme Court justice, violating the basis of the Bill of Rights. And this terrorism of rounding up people like brown Gestapo shirts under a fascist leader, that the great Charlottesville graduates with tiki torches, the great replacement theologians of Elon Musk, Carson Tucker, believing in this ethnic cleansing in order to save the white population from becoming equal minorities along with Latinos? No, they don't want to share that. So every time an ethnic group catches up to the white population in the United States, what you're going to do? Ethnic cleansings. Today is the Latinos, tomorrow is what? Asians, tomorrow, or Indian from Asia. Where is your bigotry going to stop with this great replacement theory? The only thing you're replacing in this country is the Bill of Rights with ethnic terrorism of deportation policies. And the only thing that these people are guilty of is the color of their skins. Judge Roberts, you are unconstitutional Supreme Court justice to violate the Bill of Rights within this country or anywhere in the world. When all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights, that applies to all humanity. You got Stephen Miller showboating to the media that America, under Trump, that America has to be a predator, apex, that the only way we rule is through strength. So yes, they're preying on minorities with bigotry and racism. With this great replacement theory since Trump came down those stupid escalators in 2015. Now see, the Bill of Rights don't only apply to American citizens, they apply to all of humanity on earth. When the words that all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights, that just doesn't mean white American United States citizens. That means all of humanity on earth are created equal with unalienable rights. So for Supreme Court Justice Roberts to allow Trump to do racial profiling, only to sic the Department of Homeland Security, ISIS, to terrorize inner cities and target people based on the color of their skins, for any Supreme Court judge, right-wing judge, that voted for that, you're violating the Bill of Rights, the fundamental meaning that all human beings are created equal with unalienable rights. And that is cause for impeachments to your Supreme Court justices. You're becoming tyrannically, unconstitutionally not bound by the Bill of Rights. You're becoming lawless. You're becoming blind to tyranny. Now, Lady Justice is blind, but she weighs her sword on the side of justice, not the side of tyranny. Justice Roberts. Now let's go to this Monroe, or may I say Don Roe doctrine. Like he's greater than Alphonse Capone. The Teflon Don that the laws of the Supreme Court can't hold him accountable to. To nothing. That they turn a blind eye, the Republican judges, and rubber stamp Trump all the way through fascism. Now let's talk about the Don Roe doctrine. Trump in 2015 with Farage. Trump always had an idea of taking the Americas for the love of oil. I investigated him and Rex Tillerson in the Russian Arctic during his first term when he bribed Congressman Nunes and obstructed the committee of Robert Mueller. And he and Kash Patel was in Trump's pockets. When Trump was scared of being held accountable with Rex Tillerson in the Russian Arctic, when Trump was trying to get a Moscow Trump Tower with some Russian mobsters that had connections, that they claimed they had connections with Putin. So when he came down those stupid escalators with this Don Roe ambitions of him, this Don Roe doctrine, him and Farage, one of the weakened Britain's economies, only to take command of Canada. At least Trump's playbook. So he used this Farage to spawn to push Brexit to the threshold of annexing it from the European Union economy. Because the Brexit movement existed before Trump, but Trump and Farage made it happen. Now Trump, what was in it for Trump was to take Canada off of Britain as a commonwealth for the love of the Arctic energies. And I'm not talking about Titanic Trump resort boats. Because you know everything he wants to brand, the American Gulf. You know, he wants to have manifest destiny over the Americas. So they sabotaged Trump with Farage. I don't know if Farage was so snappy to know how Trump was thinking. Most likely, Farage is corrupt just as well as Trump. So they intentionally wants to spread this anti-bigotry to rise fascism. British Nazis. Elon is busy trying to stroke riots for the British Nazi parties to run wild over King Charles. Enough weakening and destabilizing the United Kingdom for Trump to make a move on Canada. But he thinks he's going to start with Greenland because it's easier to take on the Denmark government. For now, with his Donroe Doctrine. You got to understand why Venezuela was so poor. Because America, the axis of evil, the petrodollar, America sanctioned Venezuela because they kicked out Chevron. Close to 20 years ago, 25 years ago, around there, 20, give or take a year, America sanctioned Venezuela to starve it into submission. And it was not for democracy. It was not for freedom. It was for the oil, the black gold. So the same Venezuelans that are embracing Trump in Venezuela or in Miami, you got to understand, the oppression y'all was feeling for those 20 years, who imposed it upon y'all? Who made y'all poor intentionally to reap y'all gains, meaning to steal the oil away from y'all? Y'all Miamians, Venezuelans, this liberty you think you supporting Trump is? No, it was the same government that starved y'all into submission. Y'all were eating from trash cans. Y'all were crossing over the border, trying to be refugees. It was the same Republican Party that's always been in the oil interests of Texas that starved y'all country for decades to cripple y'all, to impoverish y'all, to starve y'all into submission. And it used to be that presidents hide this type of language. Oh, we're invading, we're toppling, we're causing civil wars for oil. It used to be taboo for presidents to talk like this while they're doing their false flags. It used to be taboo. But now, since Trump is cavalier, he's blatant about it. Like every crypto farms in Stargate, Texas, where he's bringing back the Rockefeller monopoly of Texas, Chevron, and Exxon, all deep in the heart of Texas. And Eric Trump is crypto mining American Bitcoin, pegging Bitcoin to the petrodollar, and before you know it, Trump's family is rich. It used to be, they used to hide this type of corruption. Speaker Johnson said that. He's doing that on the forefront, so that must make it all right. He's doing it in the public eye, his corruption, so that must make it all right. That's what he insinuated. When they asked him about Trump's crypto corruptions and the fossil fuel and all of that, how the corruptions, period, Mike Johnson said, well, he's doing it in the open, so that means that his supporters accept it. So now, they're blatantly out the closet. We did it for oil. We did it for oil. Remember Trump in 2015? He said, we went in Iraq, and Iraq didn't do nothing to deserve an invasion. They were innocent, and we invaded them. He said that in his rallies in 2015. He said, but we should have took the oil while we were there, and we should have kept the oil. Meaning we should have kept a military base in there and leached off the Iraqi oil for perpetually, for the foreseeable long future. You think Trump, what he did to kidnap Maduro, you think that wasn't a false flag? Trust me. I work with intelligence to know what's a false flag, a pretext, a fake pretext in order to do reverse operations, counter operations. The CIA is more jackals than you will ever figure out. That's why they're always redacting and putting their files, their archives in burner bags and burning them. And that's why they never released unredacted files. At least barely. They're jackals. They always been, they always will. But now it's blatant. The capitalism in America. You got Eric Trump, crypto mining and Stargate with Oracle, the CEO, controlling the Stargate crypto computers. You got Trump controlling the power, electrical, laser fuse, nuclear power plants to these super computer farms in Texas. For Eric Trump to cryptos. For Barron Trump to cryptos. For Trump Jr. to cryptos. And now Trump wants to get 50 billion barrels of oil and control the money. He wants to auction it off at fair market prices, huh? So this is the Monroe Doctrine. He sabotaged France's economy by tariffing their farmers, tariffing their wines, their cheeses, because he doesn't want to share the limelight. He wants to take Canada and Greenland. He knows that France and Britain will be against that. So he weakens their economies. And plus, Britain and France are part of the Security Council, permanent members. So the only way to weaken them and maintain this world hegemonic against the Paris Accords, petrodollar going, to keep the world floating on gasoline. And as Britain and France are part of the Security Council permanent members, the only way to get them to submit is to weaken them with the Don Monroe Doctrine. So Trump wants to be the monopolistical social superpower. He's willing to starve the third world with 100% tariff, like we're starving as it is in the third world. But now you want to take it to 100%. I think the Venezuelans kind of figured that out by now. How much years did the Americans starve y'all in order to take the oil? Argentina, you think y'all didn't get starved by the IMF, the World Bank, the Bank of Settlements, the WTO? No, they want to dollarize Argentina too, with a professor that's in the pockets of the Federal Reserve, President Milei. Because the Monroe, oh man, I say the dawn of a new era, this gangster that's greater than Alphonse Capone, and the Supreme Court can't hold him accountable because he's a Teflon. He's beyond the Bill of Rights. His order to deals is better than the Bible, he said. So now, he wants to dollarize the whole of South America and the Caribbeans. He's starting with Venezuela. Then he wants to pivot to Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, to prop up right-wing leaders. In the hopes that Venezuela will have the petrodollar status again, that Argentina might have the dollarization economy. And they laugh about this and call those regions banana republics, like we're a bunch of brown peasants in our own lands. Monkeys, brown monkey peasants. Like we're a bunch of brown subspecies, savage, to be tamed. Like they tamed Venezuela for 20 years by starving them. Now they want to cripple Cuba, because Cuba has always been a thorn in this white imperial good old boy party. So now they want to starve them genocidically. When every nation on earth voted to lift the embargoes on Cuba, to feed Cuba. Now Trump wants to stop the oil supply to Cuba for they can starve to death. And today accept the oppressor freedoms of colonizing Cuba, like they did Puerto Rico. But Trump doesn't want to stop there. I explained to y'all the Don Monroe Doctrine of Canada and Greenland. And since Trump know that they would have never gone with the scheme, Trump messed up British economies, him and Farage, and got them to annex themselves from the European Union and tariff France farmers and their cheese, their wines, in order for Trump, because he knew that the Paris Accords it won't let him do what he wanted to do by keeping the whole world floating on petrol gasoline dollars. So as permanent members of the Security Council, he weakened Britain and France by backstabbing them in order to accomplish this venomous snake oil remedy. And he took this country in, Lady Justice and Lady Liberty. He bit them with venom and took the whole country in, the Republican base, as gullied people with his venomous snake oil remedies. That was his favorite bedtime story. His father said, you got to be a killer when it comes to business. Don't ever be a gullied person. So Trump loved that story. He kept on mentioning it, the venomous snake story, every rally he did in 2015. He used to whip out the paper and say, take me in, O tender woman, take me in. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in. See, the gist of the story, when his father read it to him every night before he tucked him into sleep, Trump's father did, he read him that story. And see, the gist of the story is for Trump not to think like a gullible woman, but to think like a killer. And so Trump pictures himself as a snake. If you don't believe me, he's always been in the pocket of the fossil fuel interests. You don't need an oracle, crystal ball to know what's going on in Stargate. You don't need to be open-minded like OpenAI to understand how Trump is buying those crypto farms. He's controlling the laser plants, nuclear fusion plants to power these crypto farm computers. While he created the great Rockefeller of Texas, meaning Exxon, Texaco, Chevron. He brought back the monopoly. But the monopoly never got dissolved. You think Congress dissolved the Rockefeller monopoly with antitrust laws? No. They enslaved every nation on earth to the petrodollars. Congress did. They never broke up the monopoly. They only showed improved upon it. Now, every nation on earth, America wants to keep pegged to this petrodollar. You see the con artists that Washingtonians are? You thought they broke up the monopolies of Rockefellers? No, that never happened. They only built upon it. And there's people like Trump that are willing to starve the third world poor regions of Africa, South America. Like they're starving Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran. Just to keep the whole world enslaved to American fiats. So yes, this president of the Don Doctrine goes globally. And yes, he's a venomous snake. Oil peddler. But he's not the first one or the last one to step foot in that Oval Office as chief and commander. America considers this a strategical national security interest of the fossil fuel interests that props up the stock exchange of the Treasury departments that Trump now with his children are controlling directly with cryptos. So this has been corruption from one president to the other. But Trump takes the cake with his venom, his Don Roe doctrine. See, when Rockefeller was alive with his monopoly, the Rockefeller oil, Congress acted like they were concerned about antitrust. That Rockefeller was too big. He created a monopoly with octopus hands. He had his hands in everything. So Congress ripped it off for him. When Delano Roosevelt went to the House of Saud after World War II and say, hey, peg the whole world to our currency with petrodollars. Congress showed improved and took off the monopoly of Rockefeller and took it for themselves. Washington, D.C., Congress, bipartisanly. So at the conclusion of World War II, then Roosevelt made a deal with the Crown Prince to peg the whole world to American dollar fiats through the supply of global gasoline and diesel and all of the plastic commodity goods that are manufactured with petroleum products. And so Washington monopolized it ever since. Talk about antitrust. At this point, the world doesn't trust Washington because it has a monopoly on the world stage of the petrodollars. So ever since Roosevelt, America has warmongered the Arab regions, and millions of innocent Middle Eastern Arab nations have been genocide because America propped up coup d'etats, civil wars, they toppled governments, they invaded governments. Just to prop up that region as our sphere of influence, for we could control the left-wing OPEC members and weaken them while we propped up the House of Saud, and we propped up the United Emirates, and we propped up the Qatars, the Dubais, the Kuwaits. And as far as Iraq, Syria, Libya, and now we're focusing on Iran by starving them into submission in the hopes that they will have a revolution and overthrow the government. For them we can say they're free, and then we can move in and take the oil. So now the Crown Prince and the rest of OPEC is tired of Arabs, the blood of millions of innocent Arabs being on their royal families, because the American government tried to pressure the House of Saud to keep the world pegged to the American currency. So now that the OPEC or the House of Saud has decoupled from the petrodollar, what are we going to starve the House of Saud into submission? Are we going to starve the United Emirates into submission? Are we going to starve Dubai, Kuwait, if they refuse to sell oil to the world in American dollars? That's going to be our next target. When it comes to OPEC's African members, are we going to starve their regions into submission? Where is this monopoly of antitrust going to end? See, OPEC Plus, there's a reason Trump didn't make out in the Russian Arctic with Rex Tillerson. And now Trump wants to starve Russia out to control the Russian Arctic energies with Exxon. Trump recently tried to kill Putin with 91 drones flying into his one of his residence. And when that didn't work, when it was not successful, because he would have gloated about it, like he gloated about the false flag operation on Maduro. He gloated about that, and he came out the closet right away for the oil. But when the assassination attempt didn't work on Putin, he threw Lazinski underneath the bus and made it seem like Lazinski had to do with it, not him. Lazinski would have needed satellite coordinates to understand where that house was with GPS coordinates and satellite guiding systems. But Trump wanted the Russian Arctic. Trump sees himself as controlling the whole of the Arctic. Even Kash Patel calls him King Trump in the Arctic. Now, Kash get money for hiding Trump's corruptions. Him and Nunez, Congressman Nunez. But you start to see the antitrust that the world has towards America when it comes to this global petrodollar of American fiat greenback currencies that America wants to control and keep the whole world as colonies. Every nation on earth has to be pegged to this petrol currency. And we willing to pillage, plunder, genocide the Arab regions. Now we're kidnapping a sovereign leader and doing false flag operations in order to covet Venezuela's oil. We gave inferior purchasing power parity to the Iranian currency compared to the dollar in order to start revolutions so we can move in and swoop in and take the oil. So we're still trying to muscle OPEC plus. We're still trying to muscle OPEC plus. So you see that Washington were divans, connivings, way more beyond Rockefeller. They just took off what he had. They ripped it off of him and they took it for themselves. Bipartisanly, Washington, the capital, the seat of government. They said this is too lucrative for one man to have for himself. And they ripped it off Rockefeller. And Washington capital applied it for themselves and their empire. And it's been antitrust ever since, meaning the world doesn't trust this country because this country is too greedy for their own good. And Trump is a perfect current leader of America because this, like I said, this stretched all the way back to Roosevelt as far as the monopoly, Washington, D.C. monopoly on the world stage. The octopus that has their hands in every nation's currencies. Their tentacles. But Trump is a perfect example of gluttony of greed, the love of money. The abomination of the love of the ruler of all evil. To think that he can tariff the world into submission and leech off the world with impunity. For the love of that money, for the love of that petrodollar, for the love of his cryptos, that he launders fossil fuel interests deep in the heart of Texas with his crypto farms. He paired up cryptocurrency to the petrodollar only to launder money into his real estate. By his children controlling the Treasury Department with shell companies of cryptos lined all around them, as far as crypto companies. So, he's a thieving. He's a venomous snake. He's purely out the closet. It used to be that politicians like Obama, like the Bushes, they acted like they were fighting the war on terror when they know they were really targeting the OPEC left-wing leaders. That's what they do when it comes to the committees on foreign affairs, the committee of intelligence, foreign intelligence. Behind closed doors, this is what they project for future administrations, these policies. Behind closed doors. Ways and Means Committees, Services Arms Committees. Behind closed doors. This is what they connive for future administrations. So yes, the Democrats are just as guilty as the Republicans. It's a bipartisan effort. Why do you think the Democrats never outed Rex Tillerson and Trump in the Russian Arctic? Because they would have harmed Exxon and the petrodollar. So yeah, the corruption is bipartisan on this effort. When it comes to the Democratic Party and the Republicans for the love of oil, petrodollars, how you think they can float the stock exchange of the Treasury? But now it's so corrupt that it's the Trump family organization that's controlling the purse strings of the Treasury of the United States of America. To this crypto Ponzi schemes of theirs. This pyramid scheme where they crypto mine corrupted money, payouts into their real estates, using their father as leverage. Because their father is the one that put them up to it. It wasn't their sons. They came up with the idea, but their father implemented it in his second term. There's no real blind trust in it. There's racketeering in it. There's adverts blatant, open, in the public corruption for it. He's out the closet as a president. It used to be that the president used to hide behind freedoms and liberties or fighting the war on terror. Now the excuse is fighting the war on drugs as false flag operations in order to take strategic moves of fossil fuels. They hide behind everything. It used to be like that, the presidents. But now Trump, he's blatant. I'm doing it for the oil. What that about it you don't understand? Because he's blatant. He says all the nations on earth, all the leaders, all the sovereign leaders of every nation on earth stands in line to kiss his ass because the economy is so hot. And that's why he's willing to tariff the world 100%. Into starvation even. Like the third world. So you see that Washington thought that Rockefeller had a good thing going on. Too good for him. Too good for him to control it. As a private sector company CEO, how dare he had that type of leverage? So they ripped it off for him. They divided his company into 3 companies. Chevron, Texaco, Exxon, the Rockefeller Oil Company. And ever since then, Congress has been controlling these policies. Ever since Roosevelt, they've been controlling the world and monopolizing the world. Every nation on earth was a colony pegged to the greenback. And they don't want to let go of that to this very day.